also like to ask for those of you on the observation deck to be as quiet as possible, because we have 2 staff members in the enclosure trying to get little Holly Bear out of the white pine, and she is very receptive to any noises. Looks like she just gave a big yawn. I think she was taking a little snooze. I would also like to mention that this broadcast is going worldwide. Yes, across the globe this broadcast is going out, and that is made possible by our worldwide volunteers. And one of them especially being our PTZ driver. And what is a PTZ driver? Well, we have a pan, tilt, and zoom camera that shows this part of the enclosure 180 degrees. And we have a volunteer who operates the pan, tilt, and zoom functions. Completely volunteer. And so I would like to thank whoever that operator is today. And throughout the program I may be giving some direction to our driver. So just so you guys here know what I'm talking about. We have other live cameras on our bears. We have 2 den cams. And we have a live pond cam, and like I mentioned, our PTZ camera. To access those, just head to our website at www.bear.org. And there's a little tab there that says live cameras, and so you can view our bears any time of the day. We have 2 staff members in our enclosure, and we call them Mom Number 1 and Mom Number 2. And that is because they have played very motherly roles to our 18-month-old yearling named Holly. And Holly, she actually chose these 2 women, staff members, in the enclosure and has bonded with these 2, probably the most deepest, and is the most trusting of these 2 women. As you may have noticed, Heidi was actually calling Holly's name. And Holly came down, I think she was taking a little nap. She scooted down the white pine, and now she's following her and keeping an eye, kind of half an eye on where Heidi is, where her moms are at, and then kind of also scanning the environment to see what's going on. So I thank you guys on the deck for being nice and quiet. We have given Holly Bear a little box, a cardboard box, and in there is some food. This time we put in some red grapes and actually an avocado, which we weren't really sure if Holly would like, but she seems to really like the avocados. I think some peanuts in the shell are also being thrown out for this little girl right now. And those are some of her favorite foods. And these enrichment programs are a chance for you guys to see, not only just see a black bear, especially a yearling, which is pretty cool, but how they kind of think, how they act and behave, how they can manipulate objects in their environment, their dexterity, and simple problem solving. Little Holly Bear came to us December 27th of 2013, so she is very new to the North American Bear Center. And she came all the way from Arkansas, so she's a southern girl, which coming from Arkansas in December to northern Minnesota in December is quite an adjustment. Oh, looks like she got the avocado. Anyway, quite the adjustment, very different environment in terms of temperature. But the main goal when she came was to get her to hibernate, and we were successful in that. So she hibernated the rest of the winter, came out in the springtime, and when she came out, woke up from hibernation in the spring, she was a very frightened, very fearful little bear. She was in a new place. She was very scared of people. She didn't know really who these people were. And she needed some time to get acclimated to the other bears as well. She also had some skin conditions, and so our vet advised us to keep her in a separate enclosure for the first few months, and so we had her kind of separated from the other bears a little bit. And in that time, staff members, especially the 2 out with her right now, spent many, many hours working with her, talking to her, playing with her, feeding her, to get her adjusted to people and to build a trusting relationship. And as you can see now, she is very comfortable with these 2. And even though you guys are being nice and quiet on the deck, she is very aware, Holly is very aware that you guys are there. She can smell you very easily. And the first time she came out, she probably would not be laying down eating right now. She'd be running away. She wouldn't really know what's going on. So she's made great improvement. The first time we actually let her out in this 2.5 acres was May 30th. So she's still getting used to it, learning the ropes, kind of figuring out and adjusting to where everything is. But that white pine she was sleeping in, that kind of half-dead, really tall tree to the left side, she spends a lot of time in. And it's funny because another bear we have here, Lucky, our 7-year-old, who I believe our staff members are letting out actually right now, when he was brought to the North American Bear Center in 2007, he was only 7 months old, so he was younger than Holly, and he also chose that tree to kind of seek refuge in. So 2 of our bears here from a young age have sought this white pine in refuge, and yes, on those tiny little limbs, they can take naps, they play on there. It's actually quite amazing. So Lucky is our 7-year-old male, and they're letting him out right now. And he and Holly have actually had some pretty positive and very playful behavior in the last few days. They've been climbing up trees, they've been chasing each other. It's been really good, I think, for both of them. Play is really important. It stimulates their brain. And Lucky, he's always been a very playful, a very curious bear. And so for him to get another playmate it's really good. And we're really excited to see this relationship between the 2 develop. So Lucky Bear was also born in the wild. He was born in Wisconsin and was orphaned as a cub. He was taken out of the den by someone, so separated from his mother. And he could not be released back into the wild. The Wisconsin DNR picked him up. He was a very small little bear, and he didn't really have a lot of options. It was either find him a permanent home or euthanasia. So much like Holly's story. And his permanent home is North American Bear Center, and we actually received him right when we were opening in 2007. And so it was really lucky timing, and that's where he got his name, Lucky Bear. And I hope he comes down. I'm sure he will. And he's about 335 pounds. They still have their winter coat, so it's very full. And he's just a very beautiful bear. And like I mentioned before, he and Holly have developed a nice, playful friendship. And Lucky has kind of taken on like a big brother role for little Holly Bear. So we're really, really happy to see that relationship develop. So we have 2 other ambassador bears besides Holly and Lucky. We have Honey Bear, who is our cinnamon phase black bear. So she is indeed a black bear, but she is cinnamon, so like brown, kind of reddish in color. She's very beautiful, especially on a day like today when the sun hits her coat. It's very, very beautiful. I think we'll be letting her out relatively shortly as well. Honey Bear is 18 years old, so she is our oldest bear we have here at the North American Bear Center. I would also just like to mention that Holly, she's on our scale right now, and so that's how we weigh our bears. We put food kind of in a little trough in the front, and they stand there, and there's a detector inside, actually, that we read. And we try and weigh our bears every single week, usually Tuesday. Weight is Tuesday. Don't ask me why Tuesday's today. I think we just kind of picked it. And that's because we are their main food source, and we just want to make sure our bears are nice and healthy. They're not underfed, they're not overfed, things like that. So every Tuesday we weigh them. Last time we weighed Holly, she was about 89 pounds, so that's a really good weight for a yearling. And Lucky Bear is about 330-ish pounds, give or take a few. And Honey, our 18-year-old cinnamon-faced female, she's about 390, so she's a big girl. And she was born in captivity on a game farm. And she and our 4th ambassador bear, Ted, were actually born on the same game farm in Wisconsin, so they were both born in captivity. And Ted Bear is 17 years old, so he's our 2nd oldest bear. But he is our largest bear, 553 pounds, so he's a big guy. But he's also our sweetest. He loves people, he seeks human contact, human voices. He's very calm, He's very mellow. And he's just a sweet little love bug. Very lovable bear, even though he's kind of intimidating if you don't really know his personality. 553 pounds of black bear, that's a big guy. So those two, Ted and Honey, were born on a game farm. And then a private party purchased them in Wisconsin. So for the first about 9-10 years of their life, they lived there. And then they could no longer keep them. And so they could obviously not be released into the wild since they were born in captivity and had been living with people for about 10 years. And so they also needed to find a permanent home. And that permanent home is the North American Bear Center. So those are our 4 bears: Ted, Honey, Lucky, and Holly. 2 males, 2 females. We have never had cubs here. I believe Lucky, the youngest bear we've had here, and he was about 7 months old. Oh, looks like here's Lucky. He is now 7 years old, so he's a sub-adult. So he's reaching adulthood. And he is a very good representation of North American black bears. He's about average size. He still has his beautiful winter coat, so he looks very full. And we have given him a tube, which is pretty much just a PVC pipe with caps on it, and then 2 holes drilled into it. And inside are some peanuts and dried cranberries. So some other things we feed our bears here. Bears are omnivores, so we do not feed them any red meat because in the wild they typically do not eat red meat, which is a very common question we get here. We usually give them a romaine lettuce in the morning with some carrots or an apple, and then a raw egg to get some protein, and Lucky Bear especially likes his raw egg in the morning. Then throughout the day, we feed them a variety of fruits, so apples, pears. Holly Bear had avocado, red grapes, kiwi, watermelon. Ted Bear, our big guy, 550-pound black bear, he loves watermelon. So they get a whole bunch of different fruits, and we also give them a nice mixture of nuts. Brazil nuts are a favorite, and also peanuts in and out of the shell, unsalted, of course. And that's pretty much what we feed them. We feed them, like I mentioned, 5 times a day. And in the wild, black bear's main food source is vegetation, along with berries and nuts. Only about 10% of a black bear's diet is protein, and that protein usually actually comes from immature insects, so usually ant or bee larvae. And that's why if you see a black bear going after like a honey bee, like a hive, they're usually not going for the honey. They're usually going to get that protein. They're opportunistic eaters, and so let's say they come out of hibernation in the spring and they come across a wolf kill or something. They may eat some of that raw meat, but usually they prefer the vegetation, berries, nuts, and bugs. And that's pretty much what they eat. We have some wild foods for them in our 2.5-acre enclosure. I believe we have some chokecherry, there's definitely some wild strawberries, raspberry, sarsaparilla berries, things like that. We also have some white clover, which I'm sure you folks on the deck can see very easily in front of our pond. And all of our bears love that white clover. They'll just sit down in a patch and just chow down. We also have a pond here, and we also get a lot if the pond actually gets used. And it does very regularly, especially on days like today when it's really hot and sunny, not a lot of wind. Like bears like Lucky, he has 2 coats on right now. So he still has his winter coat. He's black, and so he's absorbing a ton of heat. And black bears' coats can get extremely hot extremely fast. And so they do utilize our pond, and Lucky Bear actually uses it quite frequently. And there's a little rubber ducky over to the left side by our little rock bridge, and he actually does play with it. Lucky Bear loves his rubber ducky. He has one in this pond, he has one in his separate enclosure, and he actually hibernated with one. So he is a big fan of that little rubber ducky. Speaking of hibernation, we do allow our bears here to hibernate, and Lucky here on the rock den, he hibernates the longest. So he went in, I believe, in October. He denned in October and came out in April, so that's a pretty significant amount of time that he hibernated. However, Honey Bear, our cinnamon phase black bear, she went in December, so she hibernated a lot less and then came out in March or April. And we suspect that Honey Bear may have some southern genes. Now, what is southern genes? What does that mean when I say that? Well, black bears, North American black bears are in fact found throughout North America. Canada, the U.S., and Mexico all have black bear populations. A majority of states in the U.S. have black bear populations. And pretty much anywhere you see this type of habitat where there's trees, there's shrubs, there's a food source, a water source, you can find black bears. And I mentioned Holly was from Arkansas, so they do go as far south. Arkansas, Florida has a black bear population. And so in those more southern states, food is more available for more of the year, and so bears don't really need to hibernate as long as, let's say, a bear from Wisconsin, such as Lucky, where in the winter in Wisconsin, especially northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota, it can get cold really quick. And there's really not a lot of food, and so they're pretty much forced to hibernate longer. Especially the winter we had last year. Pretty cold. And so hibernation tendencies are kind of regional. And so it will be interesting to see how Holly Bear hibernates, since she is from Arkansas. However, another interesting kind of story about little Holly Bear. Since she's from Arkansas, you would suspect, oh, she's from the South, she probably has southern genes. She probably will hibernate a little less. But in fact, in the early 70s, the Minnesota DNR and the equivalent in Arkansas, so the Arkansas DNR, they traded game. So we gave them black bears, I believe roughly about 250 black bears, because their populations in Arkansas were so low. And in return, we received wild turkeys. And so in Minnesota, we have turkeys with Arkansas genes, and in Arkansas, there are black bears with Minnesota genes. So even though little Holly Bear is from the South, she may in fact have some northern genes and actually hibernate long. So it'll be really interesting to see when she goes into den. And a good example of what a den looks like is our rock den to the right of the pond. And that rock den has not been used since 2008, but we allow the bears here to choose where they want to hibernate. Sometimes they go back to the same spot, sometimes they don't. The window den to the far left, which you can actually see in down in the observation windows, Honey Bear used that last winter, so she actually hibernated in there, which is pretty cool. You could just come in the building and see her hibernate. Otherwise, each of the bears has a separate enclosure about the size of a 2-car garage, and in that enclosure is a denning area which they can choose to use or not use. So I would like to thank everyone here for coming to the North American Bear Center, and I'll let you guys watch Holly and Lucky and see if there's any interaction. I once again would like to thank all of our worldwide listeners, and especially our worldwide volunteers who put in and dedicate so much time to make these broadcasts possible. So thank you guys very, very much. I would also like to mention that the pass that you folks bought today for the Bear Center is a day pass, so you can feel free to come and go as you please. It's a beautiful day out here in Ely, Minnesota, so go grab some ice cream or go shopping, check out the Ely area, and then come on back. We have 2 more enrichment programs. We have another one at 1 o'clock, and our last one is at 4 o'clock p.m. Ely time. And the 4 o'clock one is another worldwide broadcast. So once again, thank you folks for coming today, and I hope you enjoy your time here in Ely, Minnesota, and at the North American Bear Center. Thank you very much.